Hey, what's going on, everyone? This is Mitch. Good Wednesday morning to you all. Hope you guys are getting up and feeling well out there this morning and having a great start to your day. Great week out there so far. Got you an update on what's going to happen weather-wise for today specifically, as we always do in these morning videos. But we're also going to give you some really good and detailed information about what's going on with the storm system right ahead of us here in the next 24 to 48 hours, and then lasting into the weekend for the Northeast. We'll also give you some updated information about the potential, keyword potential, for a powerful storm system that could really impact the Northeast early to midway next week. We need to figure that one out because that one has kind of more of a boom potential to be more of a high impact storm system for a lot of people. Could be our first real nor'eastern of really the winter of the year, certainly. So we need to figure that out. It's not super uncommon for this to happen in March, February, and March. It typically seems to be the most active months for nor'easters, so we certainly need to figure this out for you folks up there because this could certainly bring a lot of strong winds, a lot of heavy precipitation, trying to figure out who's going to see snow, who's going to see rain. That'll be the question. I want to let you guys know ahead of time. If you see me look to the side or anything like that, like I just did, my cat's in here with me, so if you see her roam around, she's a gray cat. Her name's Stormy. If you see her hop on the bed behind me, she's just chilling, doing her own thing. She likes to hang out with me when I watch the neighbors' kids in the mornings, which I do about 1 or 2 times a week. I'll bring them to school because they work an overnight shift and just with the transition with shifts and stuff like that. So appreciate y'all bearing with me from last night, not being able to get a video in. Just worn out, for a 31-year-old. I certainly consider myself in pretty good shape, but when you run around with a bunch of 8 and 9-year-olds, you might reconsider that. And also trying to potty train a 3.5-year-old beagle. Haven't let you guys know, but we adopted a dog from a friend of mine at work who does a lot of hunting with beagles, but this beagle didn't want anything to do with hunting. She's just a loving dog, a very sweet dog, just and just likes to be loved on and likes to just chill, and definitely kind of like a house type dog. She's really, really tiny, but she's not house trained. So trying to house train a 3.5-year-old dog, waking her up in the middle of the night, to struggle. So definitely any advice y'all got for that, definitely put that in the comments. It'd be certainly appreciated. Been researching, trying things, but we've only had her for about 3 weeks, so certainly have not figured it out quite yet, but we're getting there. We're getting there. But if you folks have not subscribed, certainly consider doing that. Like the video if you like it. If you guys got anything that I can pray about, please put it in the comments below. It gives me an opportunity to pray over it, and it gives others an opportunity to do so too. Let's get rolling this morning. So advisories, the entire state of South Dakota with a winter weather advisory. The entire area of central Nebraska, northern sections of Nebraska, winter weather advisory. Some very small sections up here in northwest Minnesota and areas of North Dakota. And then basically the entire southeast section of Montana have winter weather advisories. And also, I'm sorry, I think I said southwest, that's southeast. And then the northeast section of Wyoming, winter weather advisories. But you see this teal color right here? That is winter storm watches. Nothing's upgraded to a warning as of now. But there's a real potential for, I would say, a pretty substantial winter storm for these areas. The same areas in southern Wisconsin that's been hit all winter have the chance to get hit again with certainly some heavy snow. Definitely upwards of over a half a foot in certain areas, maybe pushing 10 inches in certain areas. So we're going to try to figure this out. As of right now, Chicago is not included in that winter storm watch, but you will have some kind of winter weather alert, whether that's a winter storm warning, an advisory. We still got to figure out. Chicago's just north of that rain snow line, meaning I would say you're going to get more so snow than rain, but things could change. You guys have kind of been in, I don't like to use this word, but I would say for winter weather fans, kind of the screw zone for winter weather. You guys have just not been able to really cash in on nothing appreciable as far as winter weather this year, but we're going to try to figure this out. So Storm Prediction Center, there will be a little chance for severe weather today. And really, again, it's going to be the same kind of atmospheric factors in place as there's been overnight, last night and to tomorrow, yesterday evening. Hail threat will be the biggest threat, with this basically a clashing of air masses right here with a very slow sagging cold front. We'll have, the ingredients there for a little bit of hail. We'll certainly watch out for that. But damaging winds, tornado threat, not really much of a threat today, but you never know. Remember that. You just never know. So we're looking at water vapor loop out here. We went from a zonal flow a couple of days ago that we're getting more just dips dips in the atmosphere here, dips in the jet stream, and you got a flow moving generally out the southwest. This is going to push a lot of moisture up into this area, and you have just enough cold air up in this area, excuse me, to push moisture over the cold air mass, and you're going to have rounds of winter weather that sets up over these states up here. And eventually, low pressure is going to move in and try to cut up into Canada, but then it gets jolted south very quickly. This will bring areas of Pennsylvania, New York states, heck, maybe some snow all the way down to the I-95 corridor. We'll talk about that here in a second. For you folks in the Northeast, just trying to figure out who's going to see what is a question, but we're pretty close on really narrowing it down on who's going to see it. But low pressure will really get just shot southward. And that'll be kind of the general theme here going over the next several days, with high pressure really pushing the storm track down. Moisture today here in the southeast, you're dealing with a little bit already. Well, not a little bit. There are certain areas it's pouring down rain here in Arkansas, Missouri, southern sections of Oklahoma. This will continue. We'll watch a little cluster of storms that surges out of southeast Oklahoma into southern sections of Arkansas throughout the morning hours. This could be in the way of storm action. These will continue, might kind of drift into sections of northern Louisiana. And then watch out Jackson, Mississippi, maybe a little bit later this afternoon. You know, you look at the Storm Prediction Center, and there's not really much of a risk. I mean, there's a general risk of storms, but I almost feel like you should extend the marginal risk down here to Mississippi. But right now, that's not the case. But we'll watch these little storms to see if they can really get going here in areas of Mississippi a little bit later this afternoon, you know, in and around the Jackson area. These will continue. They'll kind of lose some steam as they kind of drift southward in general, kind of southeast down to southern areas of Mississippi. Then another round of showers and storms will develop here in areas of Oklahoma and drift into Arkansas into the overnight hours. We'll watch an area of rain that kind of develops here in northern Georgia overnight tonight. But then just more widespread rain that you're waking up to tomorrow morning for areas of the Mid-South, the Mississippi Valley, the Delta here, with moderate to heavy rain falling in northern Mississippi, western Tennessee, areas of Arkansas, Missouri, up here. So look up the Northeast today. Not a whole lot to talk about. Enjoy one of your quieter days, because I think some active times are certainly coming up over the next several days, maybe the next couple weeks. But you kind of got a flow generally out the north, so you're going to have some showers, a little moisture. It's going to be kind of a rainy day, a cloudy kind of rainy day in Boston, the southeast sections of Mass, where you'll be warm enough for just more so rain shower activity. But you could have some flurries up here in Maine, Vermont, New Hampshire a little bit later this evening, and might become a little bit more widespread as far as snow showers from Maine overnight tonight, but not expecting anything as far as even close to anything significant as far as snowfall accumulations or anything like that. Just maybe a dusting at most. We just kind of talked about this for the southeast. These storms will continue to drift, kind of make their way into, I'm telling you, watch this little cluster of storms throughout the morning and early afternoon hours. I think that these could produce maybe some hail, maybe some damaging winds. Just watch this little cluster right here that gets going, in southern sections of Arkansas into Mississippi a little bit later. But like I said, Oklahoma, some more showers and storms will kind of develop here in southern Oklahoma, far northern counties of Texas. These will have the chance to produce a little bit of hail overnight to later this evening into the overnight hours south of Oklahoma City. These might drift into Oklahoma City. And then, some, I wouldn't say widespread rains, but light to at times moderate rain from most of the state of Missouri. Not everybody's going to be seeing it as we're waking up tomorrow morning, but you're still dealing with on and off downpours in Oklahoma. I think the panhandle of Oklahoma will stay relatively dry in this setup, but we'll watch. The north central U.S., it begins to get pretty active today. You're waking up to some widespread, kind of light to moderate snow from a good chunk of the state, or a good chunk of the northern half of Minnesota. Let me know what you're seeing down here in Iowa, but there's a lot of warm air really close by, preventing all this to be snow, but certainly a little bit of snow flying around in Iowa today, especially central to northern Iowa. And then I think some snow will start to fall in Minneapolis as we're getting into the late morning, early afternoon hours, and then, just kind of snow lightly to maybe at moderate at times, on and off throughout the next, I would say, 24 hours. You're getting into tomorrow morning, though. I really think this is when it gets cranked up. A lot of moisture floods in from the south, rides over this cold air, And you're waking up tomorrow with more of a moderate pace snow, maybe at times heavy for most of the state of South Dakota. And then you have some deep convection developing here to the south, riding north into Iowa. So this is kind of the makings of more of a substantial snow event, I think, developing. And we'll talk about this. We're only talking about the next 24 hours in this section of the video. So snowfall between now and the next 24 hours. Pockets of maybe 1 to 2, as much as 3 inches of snow scattered about in Wyoming and areas of basically the entire eastern half of Montana. Northern Montana, certainly not much of anything, but a few inches of snow in these kind of southeast, southern areas of Montana where you have winter weather advisories. I think just over the next 24 hours, it'll really be western South Dakota that sees the most snow. And then maybe a few tenths to maybe as much as an inch of snow as possible in northern Nebraska, western South Dakota will have the chance to get 4 to as much as 5 inches. I think can max out here in the next 24 hours. You look at the upper Midwest, and I certainly think some snow can add up here in the northern country of Minnesota. And, a few inches of snow is possible here in the northern half of Minnesota. And then you could add up some snow here in the next 24 hours and sections of Iowa, but, nothing more than a solid coating for you guys. Maybe somebody can sneak in an inch just outside of Des Moines. We'll see what happens with that. Temperatures today, still warm. If you're hugging the Gulf Coast, you're still in like summer-type weather, early summer-type weather. Okay, from Brownsville, Texas to Houston to New Orleans, Baton Rouge to, Biloxi to Mobile, Alabama, all the way up in the southern areas of Georgia, most of Florida. But then once you start to get further north into Tennessee, the Carolinas, Arkansas, you start to feel a difference. It starts to cool off and starts to get more like typical March weather. But once you get up into the Midwest, the Ohio Valley, it starts to get pretty chilly. You got highs in the 40s. Another chilly day for the Northeast, but 40s, a very cold, drizzly kind of rain. Probably will start falling later this afternoon in Boston. Only in the 40s in New York City. And, nothing bone chilling, but you are very cold, well below freezing up here in the Dakotas and certain areas in Nebraska. Okay, so, all right. Let's talk about this storm system coming. Let's break down the northern plains first. Let's start it off for tomorrow morning going forward. We'll take a look at the HRRR model, which basically covers this first storm system. Okay, snowfall will become much more widespread. I think most of the state of South Dakota will be having an ongoing winter weather event. Certain areas will probably get upgraded to a winter storm warning, I'm betting, especially in eastern South Dakota. But heavy snow is falling all the way all the way throughout midday to tomorrow. And then it really cranks up tomorrow afternoon for a period of time. And then I think as we're getting into around midnight Thursday night, the snow begins to kind of taper off a little bit. You're dealing with a little bit of light snow here around midnight Thursday night, but it's really beginning to, kind of dwindle away here. So between now and I would say between now and about Friday midday, this is about how much snow is expected, including what I just showed you. And this is the National Weather Service. Like I said, Montana, winter weather advisory criteria, snow, nothing substantial. Anywhere from 2 to as much as 5 inches of snow, basically from the middle of Montana points eastward. North Dakota, the southern half of the state, anywhere from 2 to 4, maybe as much as 5 inches of snow. All of South Dakota accumulating snow. Okay, anywhere from 3 inches to maybe as much as a half a foot to 7 inches of snow. The Yellowstone will get hit pretty good with this. Pockets of heavier snow in these higher elevations in Wyoming, but even northeast areas of Wyoming, anywhere from 2 to as much as 5 inches of snow is possible. Certainly Nebraska is going to be a tricky state, but I think northern Nebraska will stand a good chance to see accumulating snow. Central Nebraska, maybe as much as 1 to 10. No, well, that's a huge range. 1 to 2 inches of snow, but northern Nebraska, 2 to 3 inches of snow over the next 2.5 days. Certainly likely. We'll move and let's make sure we got this right. We'll move and let's look at the upper Midwest now, which includes Minnesota, Wisconsin, Michigan, Iowa, all the states you see on your screen. We'll see how this develops. As we're getting into Thursday morning, you notice some heavier precipitation developing, some more deeper convection gets going here. And this is when the heavier snow could fall potentially based off the HRRR model, which we're looking at, which I always typically look at. You got, I wouldn't say convective in nature, but heavier precipitation moving into colder air. Therefore, could be snowing pretty good in Iowa tomorrow. Really could. And especially if you're in far southern Iowa, you're going to mix. You might just rain. But basically, the entire northern 75% of Iowa, if that makes sense, snow. I think it's snowing in Des Moines, places like that. I think the snow really, it's already been snowing in Minneapolis over the last 36 hours on and off. But I think more heavier snow begins to move into areas like southern Minnesota, and certainly into southwest Wisconsin. And then we keep this going here. We're getting into about Thursday afternoon around 2 p.m. Still snowing for a good chunk of Iowa. Heavy snow beginning. Look at this dark blue moving into Minneapolis. Heavy snow beginning to overspread the state of Wisconsin. And look at this heavy snow down here in northern Illinois. And then it's knocking on the door of my folks here in Chicago. So the latest HRRR model, 42 hours from now, around dinner time, 6 p.m., it says snow begins to move in right around rush hour. Might start off as a little rain, but this is when you could snow pretty good in Chicago based off the latest HRRR model. It moves into Milwaukee, Chicago, Green Bay, all around the same time, overspreading most of the state of Wisconsin at this point, snowing heavily. But Chicago's right into here, right? You're mixing just south of Chicago. You are very close to mixing with rain. In fact, as we're getting, I would say until about the late evening hours, 9, 10, 11 p.m., right around midnight, you might briefly mix. Heck, maybe go back to rain. But for Milwaukee, you are fully entrenched into enough cold air for this to be all snow. Same thing with Green Bay, except Green Bay's north enough to the point where, you're probably not getting the deepest convection. But look at the snow moving into Michigan, even northern sections of Indiana, northern sections of Ohio. This, the latest HRRR model says heavy snow moves right in the middle of the night, Thursday night, into Cleveland, Detroit. And then, after having some mixing issues, you might switch back. You might not switch at all. You might stay all snow in Chicago, but heavy back-end snow moves in. This has a boom potential in Chicago, but right now, I think most forecasts are just kind of aiming towards a few inches of snow. But the UP of Michigan, I think you'll be just to the north of really seeing anything substantial. But we'll see how this trends. The last one that had a chance to produce snow in Chicago certainly ticks south. It ticks south, but not a huge event for Minneapolis, but definitely several inches of snow is possible. We'll take a look at the European and what it shows with this event. The European has this remaining snow throughout the entire event for areas like Chicago, the whole entire northern section of Illinois, northern sections of Indiana, the northern half of Ohio, all snow with this event. We're waking up Friday morning, it's snowing heavily in Chicago, Milwaukee, snowing at a moderate pace up here in Green Bay. It's beginning to move. The timing's a little bit different. I'd say it's a little bit slower with the arrival of the heavier precipitation. But, Cleveland, Detroit, you got a quick hitting snow event that moves in, drops a few inches of snow at minimum. Low pressure, favorable track for these areas in the Great Lakes region. But you see these dark blues, that's some pretty heavy snow. Moving through Detroit at this point, moving through Cleveland. In fact, around midday Friday, it has some very heavy snow moving through the Cleveland area in northern Ohio. And then some backside snow kind of lingering around for Wisconsin. And then it heads on off. And by the time you're, finish, going to bed, doing whatever you're doing on a Friday night, it's definitely ending for you folks in Wisconsin and just starting to end for areas of Michigan. So trying to figure out how much snow we're going to get in this area is going to be tricky. I can tell you the National Weather Service is going for 2 inches of snow in Chicago. They don't want to upset anybody. I don't blame them one bit. Milwaukee, 9 to 10 inches of snow, some lake enhanced snow. You guys have had a similar setup like this multiple times this winter. Multiple times. This is going to be another quick hitting heavy snow event. It's not a long lasting event. This is going to be kind of an event that drops 1 inch per hour, maybe as much as 1 to 2 inch per hour rates of snow in these areas. of southern Wisconsin, maybe even far northern Illinois, and really, really pumps out the snow. And I'm not sure if you heard that. That was my cat meowing. She's on my lap, just does not want me to stop petting her. Northeast Iowa could be another area that gets over a half a foot of snow. And then southeast Minnesota also, over a half a foot of snow is possible. But, Minneapolis, I don't think this is going to be a blockbuster event, but I certainly think you could get some maybe 3 to 5 inches of snow from this. If I pulled up the blend of all models, it's very similar. So the models typically are agreeing somewhat. The blend of all models typically stays more conservative. But I can tell you, Michigan, this is a solid hitting snow for you guys. Solid hitting snow. You guys, getting anywhere from 3 to 5, maybe 6 inches of snow for most of the southern flank of Michigan, if that makes any sense. I say that because I don't think the UP of Michigan is going to get much from this. But, Detroit, maybe a 4 to 5 inch snow event. Now, remember I was talking about heavy snow for you folks in, northern Ohio? Well, the National Weather Service being conservative down here, going for around an inch, maybe as much as 2 inches of snow. But if you look at the blend of all models, it's a little bit more for these regions in northern Ohio. Not much more, but a little bit more, okay? My folks up here in Northeast with this first system, this begins to move in as early as Friday morning. Okay, I think it starts off as a heavy thumping of snow for a good chunk of Pennsylvania. Once again, for you folks in Pittsburgh, this is not a favorable track. The low pressures have just been taking these same tracks. It just does not work out well. But right up the road, up here in Erie, it's gonna be a period of some heavy snow. But I don't think it's going to be a long-lasting event. But at this point, you stop it. This is around Friday evening. You're snowing pretty good for most of the state of Pennsylvania. But for you folks down here in the southwest corner of Pennsylvania, you're struggling. I know. I got a lot of viewers in and around the Pittsburgh area. It just doesn't look favorable for you guys. And the thing is, when this doesn't look favorable for places like Pittsburgh, it also normally isn't favorable for areas like the entire state of West Virginia, unless you're in the higher elevations. But I got a loyal viewer right here in this section of West Virginia. And these low pressures, outside the higher elevations of West Virginia, which I believe is more of the western sections of the state, where there's probably just more so hills, this has not been favoring you guys. So I hate it. I hope we can reel in one last second one for you guys. But if I stop it right here, Friday evening, snowing pretty good in the northern sections of Maryland. Some higher elevation snow is possible here in VA, Maryland, and West Virginia. We keep this going. The latest European has this as snow for New York City in the middle of the night, Friday night. Snowing pretty heavy here in northern New Jersey. Eastern Pennsylvania, watch out Philadelphia. This could deliver some snow, but check this out. Low pressure looks like it's about to ride up through here, maybe do something, and then it gets jolted south. Watch as this low pressure gets knocked south. Therefore, it's not able to bring in a lot of heavy precipitation into southern New England, but it is able to bring in more cold air. So the last hurrah with this storm Saturday might bring a little bit of snow down here into Delaware, southern New Jersey. We'll see what happens, and then the storm heads on off, and then that's all she wrote with it. Blend of all models with this storm, not showing a big hitting snow with this. Few inches of snow is possible in northern Pennsylvania, the southern tier of New York State. Areas like Erie, a few inches of snow. Buffalo, a few inches of snow. State College could get a few inches of snow. But it does not give much love to these areas. Like New York City, maybe a few tenths of an inch. Philadelphia, maybe a few tenths of an inch of snow. But not a huge hit with this first one. So let's talk about the second one. We're not going to stay super long on this, but this could be a big one early next week. As we get this system on out the way, okay, here comes the next one. I don't think this is going to be a big event for like the Midwest and the Ohio Valley, Great Lakes region. We'll stop this Sunday afternoon. Area precipitation moving in. Could be cold enough for a little bit of snow as far south as Indianapolis, maybe even northern Kentucky. Certainly the Dayton area, Columbus area of Ohio, watch out. A little bit of snow flying around up here in northern Minnesota and Wisconsin. But check this out. A little bit of a cold air damming setup. You got a little bit of icing issues showing up in Boone Sunday night. Snow falling in these higher elevations of Virginia, West Virginia. And then this moves on into the northeast. We'll talk about that here in a second. So really, this is the snow. There's not really much to mention. It doesn't look like a high impact event. This system really looks like it bombs out next week for areas of the northeast. So this is the snow that I just talked about, but then this is the additional snow from the second event. Notice the numbers increase for these areas, but there's not much of a difference here. It shows a little bit of a few tenths of an inch of snow down here, but not much changes with this. One thing you'll notice here is if I keep this going all the way through about, I would say, a week out, you got a little snow showing up all the way down to the southern Appalachian Mountains of Tennessee and North Carolina, and even a little bit of Tracy Mountain down into Kentucky. That tells me that we're going to have some northwest flow event that's going to be enhanced off the Great Lakes. It's going to funnel in all the way down to the mountains. That's my theory with this, and you've seen it on models. It's not really a theory; it's showing up on all models. But this could be big for the Northeast. Latest European comes in. All right, Monday morning. I think this could be a mess for you sections in the higher elevations of West Virginia, Maryland. You guys, especially in these higher hills in Maryland, heavy snow. Southern sections of Pennsylvania, snowing pretty good, but the track is not favorable for the 95 corridor. Look at the low pressure already plowing right into the Delmarva as we're getting into Monday midday. And heavy snow inland, not even close to New York City, Philadelphia, Baltimore, Washington, D.C., but heavy snow inland. This could be heavy too, with a 988 millibar low pressure riding the Jersey Shore to the south Monday afternoon. You can bet a good bit that this is going to be some heavy snow where it is snowing, but this will be a wind-driven heavy rain for where it's raining. And this moves in. It's a 984 millibar low pressure slamming the areas of, the eastern sections of Long Island. It's going to plow right into southern New England. Heavy snow falling in the middle of the night next Monday night for the interior sections of the Northeast. This would be a substantial winter storm for you guys. And then, it just kind of gets lost in the flow. It kind of gets bogged down. It slows down. And this will be a long-lasting event. Cold air tries to come in. Yeah, it's really messy on the Euro. It's a different scenario. The low pressure is not as strong. But yeah, it's going to be tough trying to figure this one out. I can tell you this is what the GFS says. It's certainly more colder, brings the precipitation in. It's all snow in like New York City, Philadelphia, 90% of the state of New Jersey. This is a substantial, potential for a big event. I wouldn't say substantial. I need to quit using that word so much when it's not needed. I guess it's just my favorite word. But this brings in a pretty hefty snow event for areas of southern New England. Not as strong as a low pressure with this latest run, but it's strengthening. But it's going to get very close Monday evening, based off the GFS, to southern New England. And it's throwing in a lot of heavy snow for the southern sections of New England, the coastal regions that's typically been struggling this year. And then here it is. It's doing its thing. It's getting locked in. It's slowing down. Might throw a lot of heavy snow for Nova Scotia. Tries to twirl back in closer to the northeast. And we stop it here. It's Tuesday morning. It's still snowing heavily. You got more backside heavy snow moving into New York City. And then it finally pulls away. And then some Great Lake. Some lake effect snow really gets kicked in here. So this is going to be a tricky one, guys. But one thing I'll mention, and let's bring up the potential snow from this really quick. We'll use the blend of all models. So this is the first system, right? First system. This is the second system signal. Okay, big signal for West Virginia. All right, this could be one of your bigger storms of the season in the higher elevations of West Virginia. But along the coastal regions, it's a struggle. But I think that you got a growing signal for more substantial snow coming up early next week for the interior Northeast. One thing we'll watch is the winds. This is the first system with the winds. It's very, very close to more stronger winds. I think if you're right along the immediate coastline, definitely 30, maybe as much as 35, 40 mile per hour winds are possible with this first system this weekend. Not the second, but the first. I mean, look how much this is intensifying based off the Euro. I think Cape Cod, Southeast Mass will be gusting to certainly some strong winds out here, but it'll be breezy along the entire mid-Atlantic, even down to the southeast and the northeast. with a deepening low pressure. This heads on off, it calms down, and then here comes our next low pressure. This could also bring a nor'eastern effect. I mean, look at these winds moving into Long Island, Connecticut, basically all of southern New England. You got 40, 50 mile per hour wind gusts moving in Monday evening. This could be quite strong. We'll see how close this gets. Getting very strong in Boston, 40 to 50 mile per hour wind gust. This moves into the coastal regions of Maine. We just got to see. We got to see what this is going to do. I think there's going to be some strong systems that continue throughout the month of March. That's all I got. Hope that helps, guys. I'm out of breath. God bless all y'all. Have a great Wednesday, and I'll be with y'all this evening.